We'd like you to meet Dr. Lou Ignarro. Lou has a very nicely done three-rail layout in the garage behind his home in Beverly Hills, California. Like many of us, Lou got started in the hobby a long time ago.
I can vividly recall that many years ago, when I was about 8 years old, my dad used to take me to the hardware store. He was a carpenter, so he would take me to the hardware store and show me, what kind of nails and screws and things he was going to buy for the job. And then I remember just before Christmas, there was a Lionel train layout in the store. This hardware store was a dealer of Lionel trains. And so I looked at that and I said, well, Dad, I'd love to have something like this. And so he says, well, we'll think about it. I'll think about it. And it was about a month later during Christmas, he surprised me with a Christmas present of a set of Lionel trains.
That beginning as an 8-year-old boy ultimately led to the building of this layout in his garage. Being a chemist and a medical researcher, keeping accurate records is very important to Lou. I asked him when he began construction of this layout.
I can tell you exactly, November 11th, 2009. So in November, it'll be 4 years that I have been working on the layout. I just completed it 1 month ago.
And what was the trigger event that got him started?
Just remembering the joy that I had and the passion that I had in building the earlier layout was when I was a child. And I would go from one store to another, read one magazine, go look at a layout display, and my heart rate would go up every time I would see something nice. And I said to myself, at some point when I retire, I'm going to go back and do that.
Lou was very busy during his career. He was a noted pharmacologist who specialized in researching the chemicals within the body which controlled heart function. In 1998, his decades of research in the lab led to a very unique honor.
I was awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1998. And I was awarded that for my, according to the Nobel Committee, my pioneering studies or discoveries of certain chemicals in the body that regulate our heart function. In other words, there are certain chemicals that keep our blood pressure normal, that prevent us from getting strokes, heart attacks, diabetes.
And there is one other thing about Lou that is unique.
The Nobel Committee has told me that I am the only Nobel laureate who has a model railroad of any kind. There are a lot of celebrities who have model railroads, but I'm the only Nobel laureate who has a model railroad.
Yes, Lou does indeed have a model railroad, and it's a good one. Once again, Lou's background served him well in planning this layout.
First, I made the decision to build a layout. Then, for the next 8 months, I started making drawings, sketching what I was going to do. Brian at the train shock in Burbank, California, helped me tremendously. Now, they didn't help me build the railroad, but they made all kinds of suggestions. I think I drove them crazy. And so, they made all kinds of suggestions, helped me out, answered my questions. And I think because of their help and because of my motivation and my reading, I knew what I wanted to do. When I first started this, Brian had warned me that this is a hobby, okay? You don't take things out of a box, plug them in, and they work. This is a hobby. And I wasn't quite sure what he meant. A few months later, I began to realize, what it means. You really have to be an expert. You have to understand the wiring. You have to understand voltages and amps. You have to understand why and where you're insulating the track. You have to understand the gauge of the wire that you're going to use. You have to understand that you've got to power tracks every 5 to 6 feet, on and on and on. I knew nothing about this until the transformer would blow, train would stall, this would happen, and then guess what? Then I'd have to rip up the track and do it the right way. My attitude very quickly became, there's nothing I cannot fix. So I've learned. Now I'm ready to build my second layout perfectly.
Lou's original idea was to build a big city layout, complete with subways and lots of buildings. Lou was born and raised in New York City, so this fit right in with his childhood memories. However, he soon realized that building to this plan in O-scale just wasn't going to work in a 22 by 19-foot space. Lou then moved to a concept of building something that looked like California, where he lives now. That worked, and he ended up with a nice mix of open California scenery mixed in with a little big city action with freight yards and tall buildings.
I have 4 different levels on that layout. It starts with the lowest level, which is an underground passenger station, which maybe was a mistake because no one can see it unless you go all the way down and kind of look in there. But I have to store the train somewhere, so that's where I store the passenger trains. But when you walk in the room, the first thing you see is a big crane and a construction scene. It's a road that has collapsed because of a slide, and so they built a temporary road with supports, and you see a lot of guys, construction people working underneath, which is all lit up, and on top, pouring cement, building the girders, and so on and so forth, and the crane, helping with the construction. So that was actually the last part of the layout that I built, because I could have planned it out better, but I didn't. So I had to work from the center out. So anything on the outside perimeter, I built last. We used to go to Brooklyn, New York quite a bit because my father had family in Brooklyn. And there was the subway system. In some areas, near Flatbush Avenue, I remember, there were round concrete structures holding up the track. Brooklyn's very crowded. So under the track was a good place to park cars, to sell newspapers, to play basketball, to play handball, stickball, very popular in Brooklyn, in New York at that time. So I seized that opportunity, and in the spaces between each of the sets of cement pillars that I have holding up the track, I built a different scene.
In the center of the layout is a small city scene, with big bridges, lots of details, and some construction going on here too. It's an interesting place to watch trains go by. Over in the industrial area, Lou has a 6-track freight yard. Each track can hold about 8 cars, so he's got room for about 50 freight cars in this yard. A CSX genset holds down the yard switcher job today at the west end of the yard. The yard crew is making up a local transfer job and will soon be ready to take that train across town and deliver it. Lou has also built a small engine terminal. This terminal also has 8 tracks, which provides enough room for about a dozen locomotives. Engines move in and out of the ready track as needed for their mainline assignments. Out on the main line, trains are always rolling. Controlling all these trains is the job of the Lionel Legacy Command System. Lou has 44 Lionel Legacy locomotives and several freight cars that are set up with Legacy features. He uses the Legacy system to control almost everything on the railroad. Three new Lionel ZW transformers supply the power for the trains, along with 3 MTH Z4000s, which he uses to power the accessories and the lights. After Lou was awarded the Nobel Prize, he decided it was time to take a step back from his laboratory work and put more energy into the model trains. He quickly learned that his 40 years in the lab were a big help in building his model railroad.
You need exactly the same kind of creativity. You know, in many cases you do have to think outside the box, believe me. Things don't fit, you know, you can plan all you want, and how come I still have another 6 inches to go and the track won't connect? Now what do I do? There's so many different problems that come up. And I just took the creativity that I employed inside the lab and just put it in the train room. Also working in the laboratory, you have to have a lot of patience. And that's something that did not come easy to me because I'm Italian. My father was born in Naples. Nobody's got patience in Naples. But being in the laboratory, I really learned patience. And as anyone knows who works on a model railroad, if you don't have patience, don't even begin to build that model railroad.
What advice does Lou have to encourage others to get involved in the hobby?
I would say the first thing to do is to go around to several places where you know that a good layout exists, a professional layout, and take a look at it. Just study it carefully, look at it, get a sense of what's going on. That really, you know, motivated me. I would go to various places, museums, and I would see these things. And then I went into this store I mentioned earlier, the Train Shack, and they had a very nice, you know, small but very nice layout, very well done layout. And they would run the trains around slowly, and I looked at that, and I just kept, you know, when they weren't looking at me, I would go touch it to try to figure out, how did he do this? What did he make the scenery out of? And that was very highly motivating to me. So I would tell them to go look at a layout, to get some different kinds of magazines like O-Gauge magazine, read it, look at the different layouts, get a sense of it, and then go on from there. You know, what you don't want to do is just go buy a set without planning ahead and just try to build something. You have to plan ahead, because if you don't plan ahead, you're going to be disappointed, you're going to be frustrated, and you're probably going to quit.
Lou finds his enjoyment of the hobby in planning and building his layout.
I've spent almost 4 years building this layout. I just finished last month. The fun is building the layout for me, not playing with the trains. So I think I'm going to tear this down and build another layout.